Hello everybody, today we have a handover video. This is prior to you coming and picking up your new caravan, or it might be you researching a little bit more about caravans, or you've got your caravan and you just want to know what things do what. This gives you a great opportunity to preview through it again, have another look, keep watching it. There's always stuff you can learn. But so today we have a Leader caravan, Leader and Supreme, out of exactly the same factory. So whether you do have a Leader or a Supreme, they're going to be almost identical except for a couple of little key points that I'll tell you as we go around. However, handover videos are great. You can look through it whenever you need to, even if you're out and about. You can just have a look on YouTube, find the handover video and look for the section that you're after. So every handover typically starts at the A-frame. We work our way around the outside of the caravan. Then we come inside and go through the inside and then hook you up and you're ready to go. So this is how a handover video typically will go. Okay, so the very first thing we like to point out to people, your chassis number on the caravan. So this caravan's chassis number happens to be LC for Leader Caravans 16763. The chassis number is how the dealership and also the factory now know you. So if you address any emails to us, just put your surname, your chassis number. We have all the information we need. And then if you want to book a service, come in and see us about some information. If you're looking for some parts or a warranty, you can essentially put in the subject line, surname, so it would be Smith, LC 16763. And then as your subject, you can put in there spare part required, and we know exactly what you're talking about. This one just also with the Road King chassis made by Supreme and Leader just shows you a couple of key points, like the maximum accessible axle rating is 3200, and also it's got your VIN number as well for the caravan itself. So on your caravan, 50mm ball hitch. 50mm ball, you'll have a ball on the back of your car, lower it down using your jockey wheel onto the car, release the clip, it's then engaged on your car. There are still a few more things you need to do, of which you have safety chains that will normally be hooked up onto your A-frame so that it keeps them out of the way, out of the dirt and the mud. So your safety chains will then be engaged on the back of your car, crossed over ideally, so it creates a catcher's mitt, and using shackles that are correct for it. So make sure you've got a couple of decent D shackles or G shackles with you. So both of those chains load rated for the caravan, as you see there. The 50mm ball also has a normal handbrake, like a car style handbrake that you engage with a little bit of strength. Stops the van obviously from rolling away from you. When you do stop the caravan and you want to unhitch, the very first thing you always do is up with the handbrake. So handbrake on very first, then start to play around with everything else. No point unhitching if it's going to roll off down a hill. Having said that, after your 50mm hitch, this is a Breaksafe. So a Breaksafe system is a system for what we call the blue telephone cable. That clips onto your car. That one, if something does go wrong there, this little clip will peel out from it and it applies the brakes to your caravan. So the application of the brakes will happen automatically when that pin unclips for 15 minutes. So it's important clipping that onto your car correctly. We do have little videos that go through some of these things in detail, but also then you unclip that as part of your undoing process. Also on the front of your caravan, you will need to attach your electronics, so all the wiring. So the back of your car typically will have a 12-pin plug, which is the standard plug configuration for caravans now. So 12-pin plug will get put in. Anderson plug is for power. So some caravans don't have special battery management systems, so it's essentially just turning the fridge on when you plug that in. Others, this will actually charge the battery and make your fridge go colder while you travel. So the grey Anderson plug serves as that. If you have a red Anderson plug as well, that's for your electronic stability control. The last one, this little one here, so there's two sizes that you might see for a reverse camera. This is a little Safety Dave, the 5-cent piece size one. So safety Dave reverse camera that plugs in. Also, you can have a version called Axis, which is about a 20 centimetre piece size. And again, they do exactly the same thing for your reverse camera. When you're storing your caravan, make sure you face these down. They can fill with water sometimes, so always just wrap them up so that they're pointing downwards and you'll be fine. So next, your jockey wheel. So jockey wheel serves a couple of purposes. Firstly, it is how your caravan stays off the ground when you're not connected to your car. So the jockey wheel, there's always on the pole of the jockey wheel, there will be a few dimples. And then on the clamp itself, and we'll show a close-up of it, there are some receiving holes in the clamp. Just make sure one's in there. At least then it's not going to fall on your toes, and that really hurts. So make sure it's in there. When you put it on first, when it's wound up, put it on as low as you can, and then you're not winding it too high. Don't ever overwind it by about 20-25 centimetres, because again, the wheel might fall off and land on your toes again. But simply the jockey wheel can wind up. This one's more like a little pasta maker style, but you'd normally have the winder on top as well. They both serve the same purpose. You can move a caravan while it's on its jockey wheel. It's just very difficult if it's a big van. Also, when you're leveling your caravan, it's very important that the jockey wheel is how you level the front to back of a caravan. It has nothing to do with anything else. So just front to back, always with the jockey wheel. And the last thing, never travel with your jockey wheel attached to the A-frame. Always remove it, put it in a storage boot, put it in the back of your car. So 2 gas bottles on the front of your caravan. Sometimes these might be in their own storage box, sometimes out, like these ones. 9 kilograms each. Don't swap and go them. These are your brand new gas bottles that have a life of 10 years. If you swap and go them, you're basically just giving them to somebody else. So hang on to those, refill them where you can. These are the new 2022 model gas bottle hoses and connections. It's just a big connection that goes over the top instead of the inside thread. Makes it extremely easy just to do them up. You always know they're on properly that way. So just above, on the top of your regulator, is your changeover valve. So the changeover valve is how you select, I'm using this gas bottle, I'm using that gas bottle. So that's your changeover valve. Always wait till that one's completely empty, then swap it over to the next one. Never travel with your gas bottles on. That is an absolute no-no. Gas bottles are always turned off when you travel. There's a simple little thing you can remember. When you clip your van on, you turn your gas off. When you take your van off, you turn your gas on. So it's always an on-off. Actually put some little padlocks onto these, so we don't like to think people steal gas bottles, but they might borrow it and you're not there. So just secure them with outdoor padlocks. So on the front A-frame of all Supreme Leader caravans, you have your mains water connection. So we've already plugged into this one. So the mains water tap is on at the moment. I can show you that it's on by producing a little bit of water. So that's a one-way valve. So the water's going to come into the caravan from there. While you're on mains water, you don't need to worry about your water pump. The water pump's just for getting the water out of the tanks. And then you've got your little A-frame tap, which I just demonstrated before. Great one for washing your hands off after playing around with an A-frame on a caravan typically. And then directly behind it, you have a little tray that you can then store bits of wood, firewood. Great spot if your silage hose is a bit wet. You can sit it there. It will dry itself off before you then put it inside the van. So front boot on your Supreme and Leader caravan, little gold key. So there's typically 2 gold keys on the caravans. One will be for the Kamek front boot, the other one's for the Kamek door. So inside your front boot, the front boot is what we term a wet zone. So stuff that goes in here may get wet. So if you're going to store your silage hoses and things like that, that's a perfect spot for it. So it is galvanized throughout. There's a couple of drainage holes. There's ventilation. So again, wet stuff can go in there, knowing it will dry, but you don't suddenly put a nice camping chair or things like that in there for fear that it might get a little bit wet. This is the location in this case for our compliance plate. So the compliance plate for a caravan is very important. The information that it tells us on there, so especially for this caravan, is the empty weight of the caravan and then also what your full weight is. So you can then work out what your payload is that you can put in your caravan and travel comfortably without being illegal. So we'll show a close-up of those. It also gives you your ball weight rating as well. So compliance plate, get to know those details. Also inside we have our little awning pole, which is the little thin one. So if you can't reach your awning, that one's going to be a great device to grab it, pull it out. It's also good for moving snakes out of the way and all sorts of things. I use it as a pointer. You have a Stabiliser leg winder and then also a wheel brace for checking your wheel nuts, changing tyres if you need to as well. So they're the things that it comes with. Watch one of our videos about all the different tools you can take, and then you can figure out some more spots for those to go as well. So typically with your caravan as well, yes, you do get a few keys. There's obviously going to be a front door key, a front boot key, which I mentioned were gold. Then you have box keys. So we have our tunnel boot. Typically when it's locked, it's not going to move. When it's unlocked, it will flip up, and just turn those, open it. Don't ever leave these open or swinging in the wind or drop them, because they will break if you're not careful on your hinges. Inside this there is actually a little dome light up here where you can't feel it. It's a little LED, so always remember to turn that off before you start sleeping in the van at night. But yeah, your tunnel boot is considered part of the inside of your caravan. Where the front boot is outside in a wet zone, this is very much a dry zone. So don't put anything wet in there or you'll smell it up inside your caravan. And the O-ring on these, give it a decent little push to seal it off. Next to that, we have one of my favorites. This is an outside shower. So the outside shower is a standard feature on all leader caravans. It's an option on the Supremes, but an option that you should really look into. On the Territory models, it does come standard. So this outside shower has amazing pressure available. Scare the animals off. Great for washing your feet, great for having a shower with it. You're not wasting water because it's a little pressure switch. Also, if you're going to clean fish, do dishes, nothing better than having a nice big vegetable sprayer to be able to do that with. So that one there, and that's just lockable. Just when you turn it off, these taps will only turn in a certain direction to make sure it's always off. So just empty the water out. So that was basically in is now on, out is now off. Empty the water and then just wind it up appropriately and lock it. If you get that wrong, you might drive off and your van is still watering outside of the little hatch. So the little LED light just here is standard when you have an outside shower. They'll always put that LED light up just above it on the offside of the van as well. Stabiliser legs. There are 4 of these around your caravan, 1 in each corner. And the name gives it away. It's for stability. It is not a load-bearing leg. Bear that in mind. This is the one in the front corner of the van. They have a quick release. They used to call them drop-down legs. They're actually a quick release leg, because if you just pull that out and the leg drops, chances are you'll break it. So I always like to use my winder, lower it down. The other thing is Stabiliser legs should always be used on a slight angle. Have you ever tried to climb up a ladder straight up and down, or does the ladder offer a little bit better support? So we do the same thing. So if you have a block of wood, put a little block of wood underneath it so you don't have to wind as far, but just put it on that slight angle, keep winding until it's onto the ground. It's now there, I don't need to do anything else. Don't need to wind it up anymore. Never assume you can put any load or weight onto those. It's not for that. It's just to stop the van from feeling like a boat when you're walking around inside of it. Never use these to level the caravan as well. Leveling a caravan from side to side is all about putting ramps under the wheels. And so about a foot in front of your battery box on the chassis rail is an Anderson plug. This Anderson plug is there specifically for when you're free camping, you might be parked in the shade. That is direct feed into your batteries. So if you have a portable solar panel with a regulator on it, you can then put that in the sun, plug it directly into there, and you're giving your van more charge. So great idea having that. Standard on both Supreme and Leader caravans. Behind that is your big metal battery box. So your 2 batteries, 100 amp hour batteries, are located inside of this box. It's a matter of unscrewing the panel and the door will drop down. Some of our customers choose to put little padlock systems or things like that for fear somebody's going to come along and be strong enough to lift 33 kilograms out of a little box. But I can understand why they do that as well. So that's what's in there. So all Leader and Supreme caravans come standard with a J-Trax brand tyre. This tyre comes through the Bob Jane network. The beauty of having these is they have their own warranty. So it's worth going onto their website, read up about the J-Trax tyre and their warranty. So this tyre, if you get a puncture at any point, they'll fix it free of charge. So go into your Bob Jane dealer, they will fix that. If you happen to slice the whole sidewall because you hit a curb and you weren't paying any attention to what you were doing, if your tyre has done less than 25% wear, they will replace the tyre. If it's done 35%, they will come up with an adequate price difference that you pay. So it's very much worthwhile knowing about that warranty. It's all there to keep you travelling and make it as easy as possible for you. So really good thing to have a look at those. Tyre pressure. Tyre pressure on a caravan. So there are basically 3 surfaces that you will drive your caravan on, depending on where you take it. So the first one is the most common, which is a blacktop or a bitumen road. So maximum speed when towing a caravan is 100 kilometres an hour. Even if it says 110, 100 is generally the fastest you will travel. The easy thing to remember with that is half of 100 is 50, and that is what your PSI should be for your tyres for travelling on a bitumen blacktop road. The second surface that you travel on is then gravel, dirt and corrugations. When you're travelling on those surfaces, ideally your top speed for driving would be around 60 kilometres an hour. Half of that is 30, so 30 PSI is ideal for those sorts of conditions. The last one is then sand, so beach driving, Fraser Island, soft sand. The maximum speed you would drive is then 30 kilometres an hour, so your tyre pressure would be half of that at 15 PSI. So that's a really good general rule of thumb to remember for when you are towing your caravan. Your car as well needs to be adjusted to the different tyre pressures for different surfaces as well. Check your user manual in your car. Okay, wheel nuts on your caravan. So these run a 6-stud Land Cruiser pattern, they're called. So of your 6 studs, the wheel nuts are tightened. Factory specs is to 130 Newton meters. Sometimes they say between 120 and 130. 130 is the number that we're looking for. You don't necessarily need a torque wrench when you're tightening these up to 130. Really good hand strength is 130 Newton meters. So when you tighten them, just make sure that they are nice and tight. It's also worth noting that it's your responsibility now as the owner of this caravan to check regularly your wheel nuts, your tyre pressure. It's not good enough to assume that somebody else has done something right or wrong, or to assume that the wheel isn't going to do something in your first 200, 300 kilometres of driving. So we always recommend pull over after travelling about 50, 60 kilometres, pull over, feel the hub. The plastic hub should never be burning hot, whereas there will be heat coming out of the actual alloy wheel. If that is hot, there may be an issue with either brakes, bearings, or the wheel nuts. I did a trip to Melbourne recently and picked up a caravan. I stopped 4 times on my way back to Adelaide just to check the wheel nuts and make sure everything was okay. It was my responsibility to do that. So on the side of our van, also just above where the wheels are, we have our 2 filling taps or caps for the tanks. So these caravans have 2 95-litre water tanks. You've got to get the water in there somehow. So the bottom one's locked, it just spins around. The top one, I've put the key in, I've now taken it out. So when you fill this, if you just use a normal garden hose and shove it in there, typically you're pushing air in, there's nowhere else for the air to escape. It's going to react very quickly as if it's full and water's going to pour out all over you. So the easiest way to combat that is take off both caps when you're filling it. So immediately we've got airflow, but also get a slightly smaller diameter piece of hose about 2 feet long, put half into your garden hose, the other half into there, turn it on full, it'll just fill it right up. So again, filling them is very easy. Whether you use an inline filter to filter the water you put into the van or not, that's entirely up to you. Chat to the girls inside, they can tell you what we have on offer that you can do that with. But typically your 2 tanks that are under the van are normally at the front of the van. At the bottom of those tanks, they both have a little tap, so you can relieve the water out of there if you want to. And then you'll get to know which one's the front, which one's the back tank as well for when you're filling it. Our recommendation would be to travel with your water tanks full. So what tends to happen when you have your water tanks empty, your center of gravity for the weight of the van will sit up here. Whereas when you fill the water tanks, your center of gravity drops right down close to the axle because of that 200 kilograms you're putting down there. The van's going to sit and ride a lot more comfortably. If you only have them half full, you're then going to have 100 kilograms going one way and the other way as you drive around corners, things like that. So full tanks makes a lot of sense. So above the water fillers, we have this little simple exhaust flute for the gas in the back of the fridge. So the fridge will sit here. We've got the little entry vent for the cool air, so it will suck in through this bottom vent, through the back of the fridge, and then there's a vent right up on the roof that it expels out of. Inside the van, there's a little extra fridge fan. So we've put an extra fridge fan just here that will get extra air. So if it's over 30 degrees, flick that little switch, that will turn that fridge fan on, and it just cools the van and especially the fridge down a lot more effectively when you have that turned on. Then we have our plug. So a 15 amp plug pushed in nice and tight for when you're at a caravan park or at home. Always remembering that your cord is a 15 amp cord, and you may need to invest in a little amphibian from Bunnings, somewhere like that, that will transfer 10 amp to 15 so that the cord's the correct cord for the side of the van. If you do need to jack your caravan up, your caravan is supplied with a jack, which is basically a long pole with the winding handle. That is one of your jacking points. Just hook it on underneath there, jack that, and that will do this side, and there is another one of those on the other side. It couldn't be any easier than that, actually. Okay, behind your wheels, underneath the back of the van, is your grey water tank. Grey water tank is essentially storage. There's 110 litres of storage for water, and that's the water that's come through from your basin, your sink, and also your shower. So a self-contained caravan, a lot of sites will talk about being self-contained. Self-contained is the ability to close this off, and the water stores in your 110 litre tank. When you're finished storing it and you drive down the road to somewhere where you can empty it, down the highway, or even when you've got a caravan park where you can then attach your black sullage hose to it, you can then open it up. Connecting your sullage, so that's a 38 millimetre, or what they call a 1.5 inch. All sullage hoses are 1 inch, so you may get something just simply like a little adapter piece that you can then put your hose into. Some people get a little bit more technical, and they might do something very elaborate like this, which is essentially have a cam lock system, so that then when that's attached, they can basically just hook on and off their sullage hose whenever they need to, and then it makes it a little bit easier. But for now, we can open it up, let all the water out of there as a demonstration. Just like that. So at the back of the caravan, in this case, this is the Swift hot water system. So the hot water system sits in behind this. There is no need with this Swift system to access it. There is no anode that is a changeover anode. So you can just leave it. Just be mindful it does get a little bit hot when it's first turned on. So at the back of your caravan, on the rear bumper bar, is your spare wheel mounted. When we talk about checking wheel nuts, tyre pressures, please make sure you check that one as well. And then you've got your Safety Dave reverse camera at the top. The rear bumper bar is actually rated to 140 kilograms. So there are extra things you can mount onto that if you need to, like either wood box, jerry can holders. So we're now on the door side of your caravan. So whenever you're referring to your caravan, you have a door side and you have a road side. So if we were parked on the side of the road, it goes without saying that the door is going to be on the grass side, whereas your off side or the road side is going to be in the traffic. So on the door side, we have our outside speakers with our awning lights throughout. We've set this nice awning up to put a bit of shade out here. we have a 240 volt plug. So this plug, great for using things on your picnic table like toasters or a little George Foreman grill, things like that. Inside the van it might make a smell, might get a bit hot inside, so that's a good one to use for that. We have 2 USB points and a 12 volt socket as well. If you've got a little Waco fridge or something, you can sit it down under your awning on this side. We also then have our entertainment box on a leader, which is a standard option. So the entertainment box is a TV arm bracket with also 12 volt power, 240 power, an antenna socket, and also your auxiliary from the radio as well. So just bring your TV out, plug it onto there, and then you can entertain everybody out here. The business box. So this is your toilet cassette box. So we will now show you the video on what to do with a toilet cassette, how to empty it. When it is time to empty your toilet cassette, inside on your toilet, it will have a little red indicator that comes up next to the cassette symbol. That tells you it's full, or it's maybe 1.5 more times use full. So you do get one relief flush. So once you've done that, you've seen that it's full, come out to the outside, get into where your cassette is stored. The orange lever gets lifted up and you slide it out. If there's any resistance to that sliding out, you may have accidentally left the flap that enters your toilet open. If you pull the cassette out, you'll break all the plastic. So just check inside, make sure that that flap is closed, and then it should come out nice and simple without any effort, so you can take it and empty it. So the cassette can get heavy, so extend your handle so it makes it easier as a trolley. Know where the dump point is. You don't want to be zigzagging up and down trying to find it. And then it's time for the walk of shame. Okay, so here is our dump point. Big bright blue lid, very obvious. It's also one of the cleaner ones I've seen. It's really nice. So lift up your lid. We've already removed our cap from our toilet cassette. There is at the back of the cassette a little release valve that releases the air. So push that in, and then it's just simply a matter of emptying the contents into our dump point. Hold your breath if you can, but the chemicals actually make it so it's bearable. So once we've emptied that, then get your hose that's always next to it, give it a little rinse. Make sure you leave it how you want it found. Then put about 6 to 10 litres of water back into your toilet cassette for a rinse. It's very important when you rinse it that you just agitate it, don't shake it. I'll show you why in a second. So we've completely emptied the cassette now. The last thing to do is just to add a little bit of water, about 300 mils, the equivalent of that much water, back into the cassette, so that when you take it back to your van, it's already got some liquid in there to start to dilate your liquid chemical or your little tablets you drop into it. So the reason we don't shake the toilet cassette too much when we're trying to rinse it out is there's a little white floaty device just behind these flaps, and that actually tells you how full your cassette is. If you shake it too much and that falls off, you have to reach in there and put it back in place, and that's pretty gross. So that's as simple as it is for a toilet cassette. Remember, it is just poo. We see it every day. It's not a bad thing. The chemicals make it really nice. Remember, once you put that cassette in there, drop either a tablet chemical into it from the inside or put the liquid in there, and that just helps with the smells, with the breakdown of what goes into it. So picnic table, just spring loaded, no need to lock these. Fold it down, good for about 25 kilograms. And there is also a little LED light just underneath for at night that you can turn on and off as well. Just folds up and clips back into place. So all Supreme and Leader caravans come with a pull-out step with LED light. So just give it a decent little pull. Always make sure you put a bit of pressure on it. You don't want the first person to walk out for the step to actually trip a little bit, or they will fall on their face. And you've got the little LED light underneath. When you're folding it up, you can actually just lift it and it will naturally spring back out of the way. So, very simple, door key, lock, the handle's down, it's locked. Put your key in, twist it, always bring it back to the 12 o'clock position. That unlocks it, and then again to lock it, back to 12 o'clock, pull your key out. So the lock should always display that it's in that 12 o'clock position. Once you do unlock it, you've got your little metal hook that you can pull out and extend, and it hooks it to the side of the van. And then your door handle itself, if you lift that up, that will separate your screen door from your main door. So just underneath, typically where your awning, the front awning leg is located, is your gas bayonet fitting. So this is where typically you can fit in a barbecue bayonet or gas bayonet fitting for your barbecues. It just fits in there. There is a little valve switch to turn it on and off. That will typically be on. But yeah, for things like your Ziggy barbecues, just be mindful there are some restrictions with which barbecue product has a gas failure device. So just be mindful, things like the Weber at the moment can't be connected directly to that, but just remember a few feet away is a gas bottle that you can connect it directly to as well. And the last thing on the door side of your caravan is your very large tunnel boot. So the large opening, you can typically fit your little Weber, your Ziggy in its canvas bag inside of that. So it's a brilliant little spot having that extra large space as well. So next we're going inside. Hey guys, you need to come in here and we'll go through the inside. Okay, now before we start going through some of the details inside this gorgeous, this is a Leader Caravan, similar to a Supreme. There'll be a couple of little things that we change out so you're aware of fridges that might be different between the vans. But before we get into everything, need to understand how a caravan works. So a caravan, essentially like a big flashlight, if you will, is a battery operated device. So if your battery is flat, the device is not going to work. It sounds simple in theory, but unfortunately still people have some challenges understanding it. So we get a lot of phone calls of people saying, I've just driven a long distance, I'm at a caravan park, I've plugged in, my air conditioner and my microwave is working, but my lights aren't working. They have a flat battery. Or the alternative is, we're down by the side of the river, we have the caravan on, the lights are working, the fans are working, I've just plugged in something into a 240 socket, it's not working. Again, a caravan's a battery operated device. So yes, there are a few things in this gorgeous caravan that do run off 240 power. So you just have to know the difference obviously between 240 power, things like the microwave, the air conditioner and the washing machine, things like that. And your power points with sockets are very different to 12 volt, which is battery. So the battery is the one that's going to run the lights, the fans, how the cooker works, how your water gets pumped through the van on a 12 volt pump. So that one's a very important one. Get to know that in your van and then it will make life a lot easier. So the first thing, there's a cupboard we need to go to, which is your main console that has all the buttons to turn the battery on, to turn your water pump, to turn your hot water, things like that. And that's normally your first point of call when you walk into your caravan. So let's have a look in that spot. So in all Supreme and Leader caravans, we have this one cupboard which has the radio, it has your REDARC battery management system. In the older caravans, there was a solar regulator that had a little display on it, hot water, and also we have a little pole of 3 switches. So the first thing to know is the top switch that's black, sometimes it's white, is your master switch. So it will turn on your lights, your radio, your fans, anything that runs off battery power is then going to turn on when you turn on that switch. Supreme and Leader caravans also, this switch activates the fridge. So if you have a 3-way fridge, whether it's a Thetford or a Dometic, it will only run while this switch is turned on. Even when you're towing it on gas, etc., it will only run when that switch is turned on. So it's very simple. Underneath that switch is your 12-volt water pump. So if you are using water out of your tanks, you turn that one on and that will turn that water pump on to pull the water out. There's no need to leave that on overnight, things like that. Normally you use the water and you can switch that off. The third button down is a mystery button. A lot of people get confused by this, but this is an extra fan that has been put in the back section of your fridge for extra cooling. So we call it the 30-degree fan. If it's over 30 degrees, you want to cool down your fridge a little bit more, switch that one down, and that will turn that extra fridge fan on to keep the things inside nice and cool. So they're the three: main switch on and off for your battery, your water pump when bringing the water out of your tanks, and the fridge fan if it's over 30 degrees. Above that we have hot water on two switches, but obviously one is electric, so if you have 240 plugged into the van, you can turn it on electric. So if you're at a caravan park, if the van's at home, things like that, you can heat the water using the electric supply. Otherwise, you will turn it on with gas. So if there is gas in your cylinders, if you're free camping on the side of a river, you can then turn this one on. If the light starts to flash, it just means that your gas has been interrupted. So you'll do a reset. So you turn it off, turn it back on, and that light will turn off once it is lit and heating the water. Just a little side note, if you're bringing your van out of storage, always check first, turn the water pump on, go to your tap, make sure that hot water is coming out of the tap before you turn your hot water on, or else you might be heating an empty tank, which can ruin the element. So that's your hot water system. So really the most important thing in this cupboard is your BMS, which stands for Battery Management System. In this case, it is the best. It is the REDARC, the Manager 30. So the Manager 30 sits up here. This is your control panel for the REDARC system. Under the bed is the actual BMS, Battery Management System, that has its charger, its solar interface with the regulator, and its DC-DC charger. Lots of words, lots of letters. We can explain those later. But the most important thing is when you come to this cupboard, pushing any of the four buttons up here will make it light up, and it's now ready to scroll through the menus. It will always give you a menu preview along the top. So at the moment it tells you it's clock. So it is the clock. It's Wednesday, it's 10:43 a.m. and it happens to be the 15th of the 3rd, 2023. It also shows us the battery level on the top right is fully charged. So if we want to, by pushing the up and down buttons, you can scroll through the different menus that will show you along the top what they are. If we want to set or change the time, it's always a sideways button movement. So if I wanted to set or change the time, just by pushing it once, it's suddenly asking me if I want to change the hours, the minutes, AM or PM, and then the date. But if I just keep scrolling through that, it's now accepted that I haven't changed it, it's now set, and if I confirm it, that's now the time set. So that's the time, the clock on the first menu. By going down, the next menu, it says is the battery charge status. So it's telling us right now the battery is at 100% and it's maintaining 100% because we are currently plugged into 240 as well. Then we can have an input and an output status. So input status, where is the power coming from? So at the moment, 21.1 volts is coming from our solar panels on the roof. And then our plug in the side is bringing in 228, 227 volts, and nothing is coming in from the car. So that's a good, easy, simple preview to know where the power is coming in. The next one is telling you where the power is going out. So the BMS system, which is under the bed, has 8 amps being drawn out of the battery system. And it's telling us that 8 of those amps are actually going straight to the lights, and it will fluctuate a little bit, but it is very precise. So if I turn a light on, for instance, or 2 lights or a fan, you will see how much input that has, and it will immediately start to change what that output is. So it tells you that more amps are being drawn out by the lights or the fans that you turn on, and it will also show you if anything's then being left over to go into the batteries. You can also, by going to the side screen, you can actually have a look at how much input is going through on a daily total. So it's telling us what is coming in for the day and what is coming in presently. So 148 watts, and currently it's getting about 130 to 136 watts coming in. And you can also then go back over time if you want to look at how much per hour or per day or per week. It has that mode as well. So that is the simplicity of it. The last one is actually a status that shows you what stage it's at. So this is on what's called a floating stage at the moment because it's fully charged. And it's on what's called a touring mode. So that's the usability of the van. The van is being used to tour. If I change that, I can then put it into storage. So if I'm going to leave the van for 2 months and not use it, I would put it in a storage mode, and then it knows to act as a trickle charger and to maintain the batteries because they're not being used as much as when you're touring. So we want to leave it in touring mode, confirm that, so it says that. So, and then there's a couple of other things. It tells you the current voltage is 13.4 volts and the current temperature of the batteries is 23 degrees. So very simple. There's not a lot complication to it because they are made to work brilliantly easy. They are also in the background of this. If you do want to update to lithium batteries, it's just a simple setting that you can change. You tell it what size the batteries are and it will then run as if nothing had changed whatsoever. So that is the REDARC Battery Management 30. Your caravan has a radio. It is a generic radio that is a media device. There are no more CDs or DVDs on these devices. So this system here is a basic music device. We have a home button and it is a touch screen. So if we push the home button, you can see your time settings, you can have radio, a link for your telephone, Bluetooth connection. There is a USB port and an SD micro port for putting music or movies onto it. You have your AV line out, auxiliary into it, and also then the settings. All we really need to show you, which is the most important one, is a few things. First thing, very importantly, is a little reset button that you use a paper clip in. Being a caravan, you do turn the power off completely every now and again when you turn the switch off, and that suddenly can affect how the radio works. So just simply pushing the reset button will bring it back to life. Whether that's no display on the screen or no music coming out the speakers, hit the reset, it works fine. The very important thing that we find with the radio, if you go into settings and this little equalizer button, that controls where the music is going, whether it's inside and outside of the caravan, whether it's the speakers at the front or the rear of the caravan, or the speakers inside completely or outside completely. Always remembering in a caravan, the party's inside the van most of the time after 10 o'clock, not outside the van. So use this little equalizer push button to set where the speakers and where the music is going through the van so that, again, you don't upset the neighbours. So that's just in the little equalizer setting. But if we just go back to the home button, go into radio, we're on FM at the moment. So very simply, you can manually scroll through, or you can do an auto search to the next channel. And then when you find the channel that you do want, you can hit your preset, hold one of the buttons down for about 3 seconds, and that will then preset the stations. So radio, there is an on and off button, hold it. Normally the radios will always turn on when you turn your main power on, but you can override it. Great spot for also holding your remote controls and a little paper clip in this cupboard because it's not going to go anywhere as well. So that is your power cupboard. So the other part of your caravan that has power associated things is, as you can see right here, so we have multitude of fuses, a safety switch, and then some TV related pieces. So typically this is on the opposite side to where you'll find your master power switches in the cupboard, so it doesn't matter if it's on the door side or the off side of the caravan. Nice and simple. Basically, fuses are to do with battery power. So you have 3 types of fuses, whether it's a 10 amp, a 15 or a 20 amp fuse. These are a pop-in, pop-out glass type fuse. All numbered. Those numbers will be in your black plastic folder, and there is a little chart that tells you what each of them do. And the way they will operate is typically, if it gets overloaded, so say number 11 is lights, if we turn too many lights on and suddenly the lights turn off and can't turn on again, your little glass fuse will have popped out. All you need to do, turn some of the lights off, push it back in, and it will keep working. So that's how those little glass fuses work. They're just a little screw-in fuse that sits inside there. On the right of that is to do with 240 power. So again, we spoke about the different power that comes into a caravan. So one of the things that I personally do whenever I go to a caravan park, once I've plugged in, I will come inside, and this on the right hand side is your safety switch for checking 240 power. So if I push this little check button, it's now switched off. I know that I've got 240 power coming in correctly. My microwave, my air conditioner have suddenly just turned off. So that tells me that the pole or the post with it has the power and the water, etc., is giving me full power. I don't have to worry if I have a problem in the van, it's with something in the van. The pole's working just fine. So that's a little quick thing you can do whenever you plug your caravan in. Just run inside, push the button. You know you're getting 240 power correctly. The blue one is your air conditioner. So your air conditioner, if you want to check that that's all working, so it's essentially a power switch for your air conditioner, on and off, so your air conditioner is working just fine as well. Underneath that is everything to do with your TV. So Supreme and Leader supply with all of their caravans the connections, the antenna on the roof is all part of the package. They also supply the bracket that gets mounted to your wall for the TV. The TV is your choice, so you might want to have a 22-inch instead of a 32-inch TV just for the sake of the size, etc. We leave that up to you. If we know what size TV, we can mount the bracket, but normally we won't mount it until you tell us, so we don't accidentally have it bumping into the cupboard. So the first one, this has got to do with your wine guard antenna. So that's a 12-volt, like a normal cigarette lighter socket for keeping the TV going off your battery power. You have your antenna connection that is connected up to your wine guard antenna on the roof, and you have a booster button. So you can see that little green light off and on. You really do need to leave it on if you want to get proper TV signal through it. So the little green light should always be left on. If you're storing your caravan, turn it off just for fear of that slight little bit of trickle power coming out of the van if it's stored for a long time. A 240 plug, so if you are at a caravan park or have 240 power in your van, obviously you can plug it into 240 power as well. This funny one hanging down is your auxiliary, so if you have a little USB video in your radio, you can then go to auxiliary. This plugs into the back of the TV, and essentially it's connecting your music player radio to the back of your TV for that purpose as well. On the roof is your TV antenna. So the TV antennas, if I wind it up first, that is extending it from the roof up, and we'll show a little outside video of that going up as well while I'm talking. So once it's up, you can carefully pull down this outer ring and turn it, and that essentially is turning the whole antenna on the roof so you can pick up a better radio signal. Some caravan parks, if you go in there and ask them, they'll actually tell you which direction to point the antenna so you get the best reception. So always remember the little pointy 12 o'clock position is where you put it back to. So if we had it sitting here for the whole weekend, before we wind it down, always return it to that 12 o'clock position so that then when you wind it down, it's winding down on the roof, not off the side of the van. And then when you wind it down, you listen for the bump on the roof, which is the antenna then sitting back on the roof. Nice and easy. All Supreme Leader caravans are fitted with a smoke detector, so the smoke detector always gets tested but you can twist that off, have a look. The battery shouldn't be in its plastic container. I've seen every now and again somebody come in and it's actually hasn't been removed and connected properly. So in this case, it's fine. And then if you do want to, and it is worthwhile testing it before you take off and go anywhere, if I can get it back into the spot where it goes. It doesn't hurt every now and again just to test. Hold the button for a couple of seconds. It will squeal at you, so that's working fine. Supreme Leader comes with these Ranger Concertina style blinds. The way you travel with these blinds is with the fly screen down, connected at the bottom. That stops it from moving down while you travel, and then it won't return back up. It also means when you do put it back up, it will go back up nice and properly and secure. So always keep it like that, never with the block out up. The block out's too heavy and will start to drag down on the blind. When it comes to the windows themselves, so just loosen the little lock nuts, open up each of the clips, put the window to the height you want it out, just tighten your little lock nuts, nice and simple. Lets great breeze through, very easy. Just remember when you travel, every one of these has to be locked in properly so that the window can't pop open while traveling, and then just tighten up your little screws that little bit more. Blind down, you're ready to head off. So this style of roof hatch, which comes on the classic Tourers, vans like that, is actually a fan operated hatch. So you have an LED light on the outside of it, open it right up, and then you have a minus button which will make the fan suck air out of the van. So if you've been cooking, if it smells bad, if the van's a little bit stale from being parked up for a little bit, that will suck all the air out. Leave that on for 5 minutes, then push plus. That's now bringing fresh air into the van, and in a lot of cases people don't even put a Sirocco fan in the van because that will bring in really nice fresh air. Great advantage of it is you can actually almost have it closed. It will still do the same thing. Just remember when you are traveling though, it does get turned off and closed up correctly. So both of your bedside cupboards, either side, has a 240 socket. There's also 2 USBs and a 12-volt socket that's accessible through the little cubby hole. So you can have a phone in there charging, a CPAP machine, things like that. So don't forget they're in there, very useful. Okay, so under your bed, when you're lifting and lowering the bed, always make sure you grab the metal frame and use that to lift it and to lower it. If you lower it without the metal frame, she's going to slam down pretty hard. So underneath the bed, there's a few things to point out. On the left, we have our BMS, the battery management system. So that is where everything goes into and out of. So that is the control unit that's going to charge your batteries via solar, via your car being plugged in with its Gray Anderson plug, and also when you're plugged into 240 power. Just remembering that this switch on the right is how it operates. So if you do put something in under your bed and it rolls around and knocks that switch, maybe the reason your batteries are flat is because that switch has been knocked or some of the cabling's being knocked. So always keep an eye on that. Some people put a little cover so it can't get bumped. On the right hand side is our Breaksafe system. So the Breaksafe system, the blue telephone cord at the front of the van that pulls out in an emergency. This has a little battery inside of it, and that is what keeps that Breaksafe working for the emergency braking system. So there's a little button that you can press, and what that will do is shows you whether the battery is low or normal, and when you're plugged into your car, the little on charge red light will turn on. So if we push that, it tells us it's normal, and I could actually hear the brakes engage on the van as well when I push that in. And just to show you, some people have never seen what this looks like, so if I unclip this little cover, there we go, little AGM battery in there, so a little 12 volt. So they're normally good for about 5 years plus, so whenever you get your van serviced, if it's over that sort of time period, you can just ask them to check that battery as well. But again, it will normally come on when you press it and tell you if it's low, then it's time to change it out. And one of our videos that got a lot of attention, the slats underneath the bed for tuning. So where your tuning sleeves are, have a look at that video. We'll post the link for that so you can see how to actually make the mattress more comfortable for sleeping without going and spending more money on the mattress or a mattress topper, things like that. All Supreme Leader caravans come with this Hawk/Swift oven, which is a big protective cover on the top. There is a travel lock on your glass lid that you lift up. The top consists of 1 electric, 3 gas burners, a grill, and also an oven. This lid is very important. This lid is a safety lid that as soon as you lift it, this little pin over on the side releases the gas valve so gas can come through to the oven. Now that's not just for the cooktop, that is also for the grill and the oven. So if this lid is not all the way up, gas won't go through to any of those. So you do need to make sure that's up. Sometimes a little bit of gunk can even get in that switch that stops it from releasing. So keep an eye on that if you're not getting gas through to your oven. The electric cooktop, it's great having it there. At best it's good for warming. It won't boil water, there's not enough power that comes through to that. But the advantage you have, this front left gas hub has extra gas that comes through to it. So if you boiled water on that and boiled water on that and timed them, this is going to be faster. So that is for boiling water. And then you've got your 2 normal hubs on the right hand side. So always when you're lighting them, push it in, turn it, hold it in, and then hit your ignite button for it to light up. Grill, the grill compartment, again it is gas operated. You have your containers and trays for both the grill and the oven inside of there, and there's a little handle to make it easier to pull it out as well. And that is a gas oven as well. So, and just your little ignite button for each of the areas that you can cook on. So that's your oven. Just beside your oven, on most vans this is the general location, they'll have it close to where the oven is for convenience. You have your water gauges. So they're little LED water gauges. Normally the one with the 2 gauges is your fresh water in the tanks, so you just push it in and it will show you. In this case these are empty, and then you've got your grey water tank as well, so it just shows you and gives you a guide. It's not 100% accurate, but 90% still very good. So that will always tell you what water is in front tank, rear tank, and then your very rear grey water tank. This caravan is fitted with a L-shaped lounge, which means it has the Nuvo Mapper. This is a Nuvo Mapper table leg, which is a concertina style table leg, which also has movement, unidirectional movement on the tabletop. There is always a trigger handle somewhere underneath the table, which I know from experience is now on this side. As I squeeze that, the first option is to go left and right, a little bit more squeeze, and it will actually twist however I like it. And then if I move it all the way out, away from the lounge itself, I can push the button on the bottom, and that allows me to push the whole table down, and then I can actually push it in, so that can actually then be turned into a bed as well. If you have a TIC, which stands for Table Insert Cushion, some people will just sit it there, it can move off. What you're meant to do, grab your cushions, they will actually move out of there very easily, and you actually turn it upside down completely so that this one will sit here, that one will flip over, and then the insert cushion goes there, and it will actually convert it into quite a comfortable little bed. While we have the mattress out of the way, whether you have a L shape, a club, or a cafe style lounge, there is always space underneath there to put things. So there is quite a bit of storage space. We do have the wheel box underneath there as well, but it's a great spot for putting those things that you don't need every day, but you will use them. So my suggestion, no snake bite kits or first aid kits, but it's great usable space. Just a little note, when you are traveling with a TV, the TV doesn't remain on the bracket on the wall for fear of it falling off and ruining it. Also, a lot of people will put it just under the pillows at the top of the bed. They can still slide around. One of the great things on these is there is just enough space under your cushion that you can put the TV upside down and actually wedge it a few inches underneath the cushion. It's going nowhere. It's a really good spot for storing it. This is a Thetford 188 litre three-way fridge. This is the standard fridge that comes in a leader caravan. We will also do a quick video on the Dometic, which is typically the Supreme's fridge. Three-way fridge, really simple. They have a locking device for both the freezer compartment and the fridge compartment. There's also a little lock down the bottom to put over the door when you're traveling, because the door will be heavy. It'll stop it from opening. We can tell it's on. There's a little blue LED light shining just here at the top. If you're unsure, you can just push that button. It will give you a preview for about 20 seconds of what the settings are, what the source of power is, what the temperature is, and what the after settings or setup is on the fridge as well. The most important thing to remember with these three-way fridges in both the Supreme and Leader, this will not work unless you have your main power switch, the little black switch we said that turns the battery on. It won't work unless that switch is turned on. So when you are towing, you need to leave that switch on, and that will then leave your fridge on for when you're towing. So how do they work? Basically, in automatic mode for all of these fridges, they have a system where they will first look for 240 power, then they'll look for 12 volt power coming from the car, and then they will, as a last ditch effort, turn on with gas. The gas light up might take 10 or 15 minutes after you stop from towing the van. So don't panic if you walk into the van straight away and you go, but it hasn't changed over. It might take a few minutes, so don't panic about that. You can manually change it. So that is now on manual 240, manual battery, and strangely enough it's flashing with a red light because I don't have a car connected at the moment. And also gas. If I leave this on gas manual, there is no gas in this caravan at the moment. So the fridge will attempt to light on gas, and you'll hear it ticking on the outside. And then when it does not light from gas, the same thing will happen. It will then start to flash red instead of blue, and it will give me an error code that indicates there is no fuel, gas, for the fridge to light off. So, but again, it might take up to 5 minutes for it to then display that, because it will keep trying to light, try and get some gas through the line for this fridge to work. But we know it's not going to work. So I can go in manually, change it back to automatic. I do have 240 plugged in, so it's working. Temperature, anywhere up to 5 bars. Typically for caravanners, 3 bars is seen as perfect. 4 or 5 bars you start to freeze the lettuce. 1 bar, nothing's getting cold enough. So 3 bars on the temperature scale. The last one with the setup or menu, so this is showing you a heating element for the freezer. What it is, in the bottom of the freezer, there is actually a little heating element that stops the freezer from over freezing. I've just turned it off. I want to leave that on, or else I'm going to end up with a big ice cube inside the freezer. That fridge is now ready to go. There is nothing else I need to do. It will automatically set itself. Done. This is the Dometic three-way fridge that comes in the Supreme caravans. Very similar to the Thetford in that they have a sleep mode where the display will just go blank, and all you do is push the silver button to bring up the information, like so. Now with this one, it tells you your temperature setting at the top, your fuel source and power source in the middle, and then your user settings on the bottom row. If you want to change any of these, you push the button in until it highlights the one you want to change. So I want to change the temperature. I then select the temperature, change it to what I want, then select it. It is now set. If I want to change the fuel source, again, same thing. Change it as it shows there. Select auto. Return back to the main screen. In my user settings for this one, it gives you the user one, which just is one choice. You either choose performance mode, battery save, or silent mode. I want performance mode. Move back out. and also on your settings mode, it is whether you want the fan on automatic or not, which we do, that's why it's blue. Child lock, that heating element for the freezer so it doesn't over freeze. Sound mode so it turns all the sounds off, and a battery save mode. So we've got all of those set to where we need them. Return out. That is all good to go. So your caravan toilet typically will be very similar to this. The flushing mechanism on this toilet is done via either your 12-volt water pump from your water tanks, or it will be the mains water that you have connected. As long as you hold the blue button, it is flushing the toilet. So when you use the toilet, obviously, you lift the lid. There is a slide at the bottom that will open the flap that separates the toilet from the canister or cassette underneath it. Do your business. Flush the toilet by pushing the blue button, and then close the flap so that all the smell, everything stays down in there. Being mindful, sometimes this little plastic piece can get bumped out of whack. It turns it into a nice bidet, so make sure that's always pointing into the said toilet. With the other type of toilet, if you have a water tank inbuilt to it, you are flushing from its own water tank into the toilet. So you have to keep an eye on how much water is in that canister for flushing as well. And always, if you get the opportunity, use the little tablets, satchels that you can just drop in when you change the cassette. Makes it a lot easier than using the chemicals as a liquid as well. But very simple, it's a toilet. Your caravan shower, couple of little pointers to do this. All showers will have a plug. It's not meant to be a bath. It is actually stopping dust from coming into the caravan when you're traveling on dusty roads. Any van that's got a grey water tank, you can just use that, close the lever, and the dust won't come up as well. But that's what that plug is for. In all Supreme and Leaders, they use this special plastic capping that covers where the plumbing is behind it. It is a brilliant system so that if there is a problem, a water leak with that plumbing, you can access it. It's nice and simple. It's not in the cavity where you can't see it and you can't access it. So the bottom section has a little opening under here. It is meant to be there. It is just purely that if the water is coming out of there, it is because there is a little plumbing issue. It's not soaking into your woodwork, your frame, your caravan, making it rot. It is completely visible, making it a much better system than any other caravan. It is entirely up to you if you take this off its hook and put it on the ground, wrap it up in a towel, or some people will just take the slack out of it and then just put it back in its place. It is entirely up to you. There is no right, no wrong way of doing it. I'm not even going to suggest it to you. Whatever works for you. So with your air conditioners, whether it's a Bel Air 3400 or the Ibis 4, they are both soft start air conditioners. The Bel Air happens to have 4 vents on their model as opposed to just one going lengthways down the van on either side. Really simple. Your remote control has a for dummies section, which is really temperature up and down, mode select for the whether it's heating, cooling, the fan speed, and really just temperature up and down for whether it's Fahrenheit or centigrade. You can then go into the more complicated details of delay timers and set a timer to turn it on or off at night, but very simple. Here at beep, it's registered, it says 20 degrees up here, it's 20 degrees here, and it's blowing some very nice cool air. This is your typical top load washing machine that comes in most of the caravans. We'll also show you the front load washing machine. But this top load, it is a 3 kilogram washing machine. There will always be what's called a drum protector insert. Great for putting your pegs in, so I've been told. That just sits inside while you're traveling to stop the drum from bouncing around. Most important thing with your washing machine is where you get the power from. So in your basin, underneath at the top, there is a 240 plug that is for the 240 power for your washing machine. But you've also then got a little silver square plug down there, which is how you turn the water on to get into the washing machine as well. So they're the 2 things you need to know for that. And just a little point of view down underneath that, that is where the hot water system is in that van. And you can see there's a 240 plug as well. So if you ever need to know how that's connected, just look for that one as well. Most of the bunk bed caravans and the shorter caravans, like the 18-foot, 18.5-foot, instead of having a top-load washing machine, will have this small mini wall-mounted 3-kilogram washing machine. Still good for 2 full-size beach towels. Important thing when using these is, again, where those water connections and the 240 power connection is for that. So normally if you look in the drawer underneath the washing machine, that's where you'll find it, and I'll show you that now. So the top drawer, just pull that one out, and then you've actually got access in there to your power point and the switch for 240 power, and then your silver tap is how you turn the water on and off for the washing machine when you use it. So in the bunk bed vans, just important to know which drawer that is. Don't load it up too much, just so you've got access to get it in and out. Well, congratulations, that is your new caravan. So on the outside, the inside, lots of things to learn. We don't expect you to learn them all straight away, but obviously having this video at hand is very helpful because you can always look back. How do I turn the hot water on? How do I stabilize the van? Things like that. It's on the video. Leading up to your handover day, if there's a couple of things that weren't quite clear in the video, make sure you write those things down, because we don't want to go through everything and have you confused. We'd rather focus on a few items that are really important to you, that are going to make your life easier, and then you can always refer back to the video. With a new caravan, a couple of things to remember. Your first service is typically due in about 1,000 kilometers or within 3 months. So when you pick up the caravan, that's a great time to book that first service, knowing that you're going to take it, use it a little bit, then bring it back. After that, it's every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres per service. We hope you enjoy it. This has been Stephen at Adelaide RV. We'll see you out there.